The richest brother duo that flat out dominates the state of Georgia. That's exactly what I'm getting into right now. All right, I want you to wrap your head around something that should not be possible. Imagine a multi-billion-dollar food operation, one of the most profitable in the entire country, that voluntarily chains its own doors, shut one full day every single week, every Sunday, on purpose. Walks away from a mountain of money it could easily grab and does it with a smile. Now imagine that same operation, working only 6 days while its rivals work 7, still managing to out-earn almost every competitor it has. That is not a riddle. That is Chick-fil-A. And sitting at the very top of it are two brothers out of Atlanta, Georgia, Dan Cathy and his brother Donald, who everybody just calls Bubba. Two men who inherited a chicken business from their daddy and turned it into one of the most dominant, most beloved, and most stubbornly private food machines America has ever seen. And here's the thing most people miss. When you pull into that drive-thru and somebody hands you a sandwich and says, "My pleasure," you think you're just buying lunch. What you're actually standing in front of is a fortress, a family-controlled operation worth tens of billions of dollars that has refused for decades to do almost everything the modern business world says you're supposed to do. They won't go public. They won't open on Sundays. They won't sell out cheap franchises to anybody with a checkbook. And every time the experts said that would be their downfall, the two brothers just got bigger. This is not a story about fried chicken. This is a story about two brothers who decided the rules everybody else worships simply did not apply to them. Let's get into it. Quick rewind, because you can't understand the brothers without understanding their father. His name was Truett Cathy, and he came up about as far from a silver spoon as a man can get, a Depression-era kid from Georgia who knew exactly what an empty stomach and an empty wallet felt like. After serving in the war, he scraped together enough to open a tiny little spot near Atlanta called the Dwarf Grill. 24 hours, a handful of stools, hard work, and a dream. And in that little diner, Truett got obsessed with one idea: a chicken sandwich. A deboned chicken breast, seasoned just right, pressure cooked fast, slapped on a buttered bun with a couple of pickles. Simple, but he fussed over that thing for years until it was perfect. By 1967, he opened the very first restaurant carrying the Chick-fil-A name in an Atlanta mall, and the chain was born. A Georgia man, a Georgia diner, a Georgia idea that was about to spread across the whole country. Now, here's the part that decides the fate of almost every family business. The founder gets old, he's got to hand it down. And this is the exact moment the wheels usually come off, the founder dies, the kids start fighting, somebody wants to cash out, somebody wants to sell the whole thing to a giant corporation. The lawyers show up, and within a few years, the thing the old man built is just a logo owned by strangers. When Truett passed away in 2014, every one of those landmines was sitting right there waiting, and his sons stepped over every single one of them. Let's talk about the money, because people hear chicken restaurant and picture some modest little operation. So let me make the real scale land. Chick-fil-A pulls in more money per location than almost any fast food chain in America, not close to the top at the top. And remember the kicker, they do it while closed on Sundays. Their rivals get a whole extra day, 52 extra days a year, and the Cathy brothers still beat them with one hand tied behind their back. The chain rakes in tens of billions of dollars in sales, and because the family kept the whole thing to themselves, that wealth didn't get scattered across a million shareholders. It stayed right where it started, with the family. That's made Dan and Bubba Cathy two of the wealthiest people in the entire country, sitting on fortunes that run into the billions each. And here's what gets me. You would never know it. These aren't men chasing magazine covers or screaming on cable news or buying up sports teams to see their names in lights. They're church-going Georgia guys who'd probably rather talk to you about their grandkids than their bank accounts. They got staggeringly rich while staying about as low-key as a billionaire can possibly be. And let that per store number really sink in, because it's the part that should keep every competitor up at night. A single Chick-fil-A often out-earns 2 or 3 of a rival's locations combined, while serving fewer days a week and running lines that somehow move faster than anybody else's. That's not luck. That's a machine tuned so tight, it squeezes more out of 6 days than the giants get out of 7. Picture every other fast food boss in America staring at that math and just shaking his head. They've got more locations, more open hours, bigger advertising budgets, and they still can't touch what 2 brothers from Georgia built out of one little chicken sandwich. When you dominate like that with one arm tied behind your back, it stops being a restaurant and starts being a phenomenon. Most people, the second they smell that kind of money, they get loud and they get greedy. They squeeze every nickel out of every hour. The Cathy brothers looked at the greediest, most obvious move in the entire playbook, stay open on Sundays, and said no thanks. Which brings us to their first and strangest weapon. Here is the move that makes Wall Street's head explode. Every Chick-fil-A in America goes dark on Sunday. Doesn't matter if it's the Super Bowl. Doesn't matter if there's a line out the door. Doesn't matter that it's arguably the single busiest, most profitable day of the week for the rest of the food business. The doors stay locked. Do the math on what that costs, and it'll make your eyes water. Some estimates say closing on Sundays leaves billions of dollars in sales sitting on the table every single year. Any normal company run by normal money, people would never, ever allow that. A board of shareholders would riot. An analyst in New York would have a stroke trying to explain it. You're telling me you could make billions more and you're choosing not to? Are you insane? But here's what the suits never understood. That locked door isn't a weakness, it's a promise. It started with old Truett, a man of deep faith who wanted his people to have one guaranteed day to rest, to be with their families, to go to church if they chose to. And his sons didn't just keep that tradition out of sentiment. They turned it into one of the most powerful loyalty weapons in American business. Because to millions of customers, especially older folks, faith-driven folks, family-first folks that close door, says something no advertisement ever could. This company has a backbone. It values something more than money. In a world where every other business will do absolutely anything for one more dollar, here's one that looks at a pile of guaranteed cash and says, nope, some things matter more. People don't just buy from a company like that, they defend it. Because every story like this has an enemy, and this one doesn't carry a weapon, it carries a spreadsheet. The enemy here is Wall Street, and the whole grow at all costs machine that runs modern American business. The mindset that says nothing matters except the number going up, faster every quarter, forever, no matter who gets squeezed to make it happen. Understand the pressure these brothers have been under their entire lives. An operation as profitable as Chick-fil-A is like blood in the water for that crowd. The pitch never stops, and it always sounds so reasonable. Take the company public, you'll be worth $100 billion overnight. Open on Sundays, think of the revenue. Sell more franchises, faster to more people, expand, cut the training, speed up the line, trim the quality just a hair, nobody will notice. Squeeze. It's all dressed up as smart business. What it actually does, most of the time, is hollow out the very thing that made a company special in the first place. The brothers didn't argue with that machine. They didn't go on TV to debate it. They just quietly refused it, year after year after year. Every single pressure that has turned other great American companies into soulless, corner-cutting shells, they said no to all of it. And while everybody waited for that stubbornness to finally sink them, the exact opposite kept happening. They kept winning, which tells you the machine was wrong about what actually makes people loyal. Let me explain why staying private is such a monster of a weapon. Because if you've never run a business, this can sound like a boring technicality. It is anything but. Going public means selling pieces of your company to anybody with a brokerage account. And the second you do that, you stop working for your customers and you start working for shareholders, strangers who have never set foot in Georgia, who don't care about your employees, who don't care about your values, who want exactly one thing, the number to go up every 90 days, no matter what it breaks. The Cathy brothers could have taken Chick-fil-A public anytime they wanted and instantly become some of the richest men on the planet on paper. Bankers would have lined up around the block begging for the chance. They said no. They kept the whole thing family-owned, locked down, controlled entirely by people who actually carry the name, which means when somebody wanted them to ditch the Sunday closing to juice the stock price, there was no shareholder meeting where that could even be brought up. There was just two brothers in a room saying, "That's not who we are." That's the difference between a company that answers to Wall Street and a company that answers to a family. One is forced to chase this quarter. The other one gets to think in decades. You can't raid a fortress when the family owns every single brick of it, and these two never handed anybody else a brick. Now, here's a weapon almost nobody on the outside understands, and it might be the smartest one of all. Most fast food chains grow by selling franchises, like hotcakes, basically. If you've got enough money, you can buy the right to slap their sign on a building, and they'll take your fee and let you run wild, often owning a dozen locations at once. More franchises, more fees, faster growth. That's the standard game. The Cathy brothers play it completely backwards, and on purpose. Getting chosen to run a Chick-fil-A is famously harder than getting into a top university. They turn away the overwhelming majority of people who apply, and the fee to get in? Shockingly low compared to the giants. But here's the catch that protects the whole kingdom. An operator generally runs just one restaurant. You don't get to be a faceless investor who owns 40 of them and never shows up. They want an owner standing in that actual building, knowing the regulars by name, caring about that one community. Think about how brilliant that is. By refusing the easy franchise money and handpicking each operator like they're choosing family, the brothers guarantee that every location is run by somebody who actually cares. That's why the service is consistent. That's why the place is clean. That's why it feels different from the sad, sticky-floored fast food joints we've all walked out of. They built a gate that money alone cannot open, and that gate is the reason the quality never got watered down as they grew. The giants sold their name to the highest bidder. The Cathys guarded theirs like it was sacred. This one sounds soft until you realize how much money it prints. Walk into any Chick-fil-A and you will get treated better than you do at restaurants, charging 5 times the price. Polite kids who look you in the eye, orders that are actually right, and that famous little phrase you say thank you, and instead of uh-huh or no problem, they say my pleasure. That's not an accident. Old Truett borrowed that bit of class from fancy luxury hotels and baked it into the whole operation, and his sons doubled down on it. They turned plain old good manners into a weapon. Because here's the truth, nobody in the fast food world wanted to admit Americans, especially older Americans, are starving for basic respect. We've all gotten so used to being treated like a nuisance, like a number, like we're bothering the staff just by existing, that when a company actually treats us like a welcome guest, it hits something deep. It feels like stepping back into a time when service meant something. The brothers understood that the food gets you in the door once, but the way you're treated is what makes you come back 200 times. While their rivals were cutting staff and shoving people toward touchscreens, Chick-fil-A doubled down on actual human warmth. They weaponized kindness in a world that had gone cold, and people drove right past 3 other restaurants to get it. So, how does one family hold something this enormous together without it slipping away? Here's the mechanism, and it's almost beautifully simple. They kept the control inside the bloodline and never, ever let an outsider near the steering wheel. Most founding families lose everything the same boring way. They take the company public, they water down their ownership, they let outside investors and big institutions buy in, and within a generation or two, the family that built the thing is reduced to a nice portrait in the lobby while strangers run the show. The Cathys refused to play that game. Dan took the chairman's seat after their father passed. Bubba runs his side of the operation, including the original dwarf house where the whole story began. The keys never left the family's hands. And here's why that matters to you. The regular person ordering a number 1 with a sweet tea, when a company is controlled by a family that actually believes in something, instead of a faceless board chasing a stock price, it can make choices that are good for people instead of just good for profit. It can stay closed on Sunday so its workers get a day off. It can pay attention to quality instead of cutting corners. It can treat you like a human being. The family lock on the door wasn't just about keeping the money close. It was about protecting the soul of the thing from the people who would have happily sold it. Let me be straight with you, because this is the part that deserves the most weight. We're living in a time where it feels like every big company has decided you're the enemy. They nickel and dime you, they shrink the product and keep the price, they bury you in fees, they replace every friendly face with a machine, and they charge you for the napkins if they thought they could get away with it. We've all felt it. That slow, cold realization that these companies just don't care about us anymore. And then there's these two brothers from Georgia, men who inherited a fortune and could have done the greedy thing every single day, open on Sundays, go public, sell out the name, cut the quality, ditch the values, the second they got expensive. The spreadsheet was begging them to. Nobody would have blamed them. They didn't. They kept the doors locked on Sunday so their people could rest. They kept it private so it could stay true to itself. They guarded who got to run a store so the quality never slipped. They treated customers, especially the older ones, everybody else ignores, with a kind of respect that's gone almost extinct in this country. They built something massive without losing the thing that made it worth building. Are they perfect? No. Nobody sitting on that kind of fortune is a saint, and I'm not going to insult your intelligence by pretending otherwise. But in a country drowning in companies that sold you out the first chance they got, here are two brothers who had every reason to cash in, and instead kept choosing over and over to stand for something. That is rarer than the billions, and a whole lot harder to find. Here's the last piece, and it's the proof they actually pulled it off. Their father is gone now. The brothers themselves are older men. But the thing they protected is still standing, still growing, still doing it their way. The doors still lock on Sunday. The kids still say my pleasure. The lines still wrap around the building. And the next generation of the family has already stepped in to keep it pointed in the exact same direction it's always faced. Most fortunes are a bonfire bright and loud while the person who lit it is alive, and cold ash the second they're gone. These two didn't build a bonfire. They built something with a foundation under it, the kind of thing that holds long after the people who poured it have walked away. Two brothers from Georgia who never needed the spotlight, never let the money machine bully them into selling their soul, and never forgot the simple lessons. A poor kid from the Depression baked into a little diner near Atlanta. They took their father's chicken sandwich and didn't just keep it, they guarded it. They grew it, and they made absolutely sure the values behind it would outlast every last one of them.